Trapped with Daniel, Chapter 21. Chapter 21. He got a nosebleed. Jerry had called and texted Sally in the last couple of days, but to no avail. She remained silent to him. Now Jerry had met Sally face to face, and now was his chance to finally figure out what was really going on between them lately. He was going to ask her if she wanted to give up on him. Behind Jerry's back, Sven looked at Jane, who was now just about to fall asleep. He thought that Jane was pitiful. He had just asked Jerry to come and pick her up. But Jerry ignored his sister in favor of his future wife. Sven, pitying Janet, held her in his arms and walked towards the door. When Sven was wondering how to open the door while at the same time holding Janet in his arms, it suddenly opened from the outside. The door opened, and through it in came Daniel. He looked at the sleeping girl in Sven's arms, and asked, "Where is Sally?" "I was just about to tell you. Jerry just picked her up." Jerry took care of his future wife and ignored his sister. "Poor me. I now have to take Jane to my house and risk being chased and beaten up by my girlfriend." Sven shook his head and left the bar's private room with Jane in his arms. Sven, when he was just about to lay Janet onto the back seat of his car, saw Daniel say goodbye to his girlfriend. "Spark, please help me send Kate back." Kate didn't understand, and asked, "Daniel, what about you?" He pointed at Sven, who was not that far away from them, and replied, "I have something to do with him." Kate nodded, "Okay. Good night." With this, she boldly raised herself on tiptoes and kissed Daniel's right cheek. A strange expression appeared on Daniel's face, but it was too dark for the others to notice it clearly. As the black Bentley left, Daniel walked up to Sven. Sven thought that Daniel just came up to say goodbye to him, and said, "Bye. I am going to take Jane to my place." But Daniel instead got in the car, not saying a single word. He then moved Janet to the left and leaned her against the car's second back door. "I'm going in the same direction. Please give me a lift." With these words, Daniel closed the car's door. The royal mansion was in the eastern part of the city while Sven's apartment was in the south. Why was he saying he was going in the same direction? Sven sat in the driver's seat, feeling uptight. He was a doctor with outstanding medical skills, as his father was, and now suddenly he was Daniel's personal driver? "Daniel, could you sit next to me here in the front? Jane will feel uncomfortable and stiff if she sleeps like that," said Sven, as he fastened his seat belt. "No. That's fine." Sven was just worried that Jane would feel uncomfortable and get muscle cramps when she woke up. Daniel, of course, was fine, since he wasn't sleeping. It would be more comfortable for Jane to lie on the back seat alone. "Please, drive now." Daniel kicked the driver's seat. Sven, who was bummed out, seemed to be suddenly aware of something when he saw in the rear-view mirror that Jane was now sleeping pressed against Daniel's left shoulder. As he parked his car in front of Daniel's villa at the royal mansion, Sven's thoughts were now definitely confirmed. After getting out of the car, Daniel wasn't in too much of a rush to enter the house. Instead, he gently lifted Janet in his arms, who was sound asleep, out of the car. "Daniel, you can't take Jane to your home. Her father and mother will be furious if they see her like this." Sven tried to stop him as he thought that Daniel was going to take Jane to her home. But Daniel just turned round and briefly nodded, and then he entered his villa with Janet in his arms. "Daniel's really going inside with her." Sven rubbed his eyes and took a better look at what was just happening. It was really true. Daniel entered his villa with Jane drunk in his arms. What was going on? Daniel already had a girlfriend. Am I overthinking all of this? Does Daniel look at Jane only as a sister? Thought Sven. He was about to call back Jerry and tell him what had just happened, but his phone was powered off. And to top it off, when he tried calling Jerry again, his phone also ran out of battery and died. So Sven drove away, because, after all, Daniel was the person he trusted most in the world, and so he trusted him that he knew best what he was doing. In the villa, Daniel took Janet back home without hesitations, but now he began to regret it, since he didn't know where he could let her sleep in the house. Should he let her sleep on the carpet? Or on the sofa? He first decided to lay her down on the sofa. Janet turned in her sleep and grabbed a pillow tight in her arms. After thinking about what he had done for a little while, Daniel decided to call Sven again, but Sven's phone was dead. He then called Jerry, but his phone was dead as well. Suddenly, Daniel had a strong feeling that he had brought back home trouble. He now felt very disappointed with himself. Forget it. Just let her sleep on the sofa. He would never have let her sleep on his bed. He went upstairs, and after he took out his nightrobe from the cloakroom, he entered the bathroom to take a shower. When he had just turned on the shower head, the woman who was sleeping on the sofa downstairs suddenly awoke and opened her eyes. "Oh! Why did I fall asleep on the sofa?" she thought. She stooped up from the sofa and staggered towards the staircase barefooted. Ah! When did father change the steps and handrail color into white? Why is the second floor completely redecorated? Why doesn't father tell me of these things? Anyway, which is my room? She opened the door of one of the rooms but saw an empty bed, without any linen on it. She knew from the start that this clearly wasn't her room. And then she opened another door, but it was a study. And another one after. But when Janet opened the last room, she was astounded when she laid her eyes on the huge bed in it. Wow! What a big bed! She didn't think too much and instantly jumped on it with excitement. Oh, no, I'm not comfortable dressed like this. Why is the closet placed the other way around? Anyway, I'll just sleep here. Janet entered the closet, took off her clothes, and then went back to bed. She sluggishly climbed on the bed and covered herself with a thin quilt, and then she curled up in it and then quickly fell back asleep. 20 minutes later, the bathroom door was opened, and Daniel walked out of it wearing only a black bathroom robe and a pair of slippers. He went up to the wine rack, poured himself a glass of red wine and then took a greedy sip out of it. For a moment he thought of the woman that was sleeping downstairs, and after he finished his wine he went outside. He instantly felt that there was something wrong with it. With his 3-year experience as a soldier, Daniel was wary that there was something not at place with his room. After he calmly surveyed around his room, his eyes finally stopped at the apparent wad of stuff laying on his bed. He was sure that there had been nothing on his bed before. However, Something had appeared meanwhile he was showering. Everything else looked normal, and he took a glance at the windowsill and the balcony's door. No signs of an apparent break-in were present. As he gradually got close to it, he was astonished to find out that the wad on his bed could even move. As he got next to the bed, Daniel suddenly opened the quilt. He remained stunned for a while after he saw Janet under the quilt. 3 minutes later, he felt he was breathing more rapidly and felt a surge of heat flowing and gushing out of one of his nostrils. To his surprise, he got a nosebleed from all the stress he was being put through. Damn it! Daniel looked paler than before, and as he looked at the fresh bloodstain on his hand he decided to go to the bathroom and wash again. This time he took a cold shower, and Daniel returned to the bedroom in the same bathrobe as before. He tried to restrict himself not to look at Janet. He picked up the quilt that was lying next to him and covered her. He didn't dare to look at Janet until she was totally covered from head to toe. "Janet Shao, get up this instant." But she was sound asleep, not making the slightest move. "Janet Shao, don't let me tell you a second time." But she still didn't move a muscle. Daniel was furious. How did I bring back home such a troublemaker? "Janet Shao!" He yelled at her even more loudly. Until Janet, under the quilt, finally moved. But just a little, and this disappointed Daniel even more. Janet, who was sound asleep, when she clearly heard someone calling out her name, finally awoke, opened her quilt, and suddenly sat up in bed. To view hidden contents, please check them out on our app.